everyone. Welcome, welcome again to Elevating Your Life. Today, I have just an amazing lady with us. I am so thrilled to share with you Patricia Saunders, and she is the author of Creating a Happy World. And it's just a fantastic book. She just has a lot of fantastic knowledge and what she does. I am just thrilled. Welcome, Patricia. So nice to have you here today.
And thank you, Paula. Thank you for inviting me on. I've been looking forward to this ever since we first discussed it a long time ago.
Me too. Well, I would love to have you share some of your background and maybe what prompted you to write this book, Creating a Happy World.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think I could start off by saying I was trained as a classical musician a long, long time ago. And then I learned a technique called Transcendental Meditation, which is really what Creating a Happy World is sort of based on, and became a teacher of it. And then through various things, I ended up coming to the US, where I married a really wonderful American. And I've been here ever since. In fact, I've now been here, it's coming up to 18 years. And I teach now at Maharishi International University, where every discipline, all the normal things one would normally learn, whether it's computer science or art or sustainable living, writing, and so on, they're all taught on the basis of the ground, let's say, they're all taught on the ground of consciousness, understanding that everything is an expression of consciousness. So I'm teaching now. In fact, I was teaching this morning, which is why I've now got a cough sweet in my mouth to stop me coughing, because I'm teaching a really great class at the moment. They're lovely, they're bright, they're very alert, and it's just a pleasure to be with them.
Oh, that has to be so fun. Oh my gosh, I bet that is wonderful.
It is.
Well, first off, because you do, in your book, you talk about how transcendental meditation and its advanced programs can develop higher states of consciousness, increase happiness, and provide relief from sadness and suffering. So for those that have never heard of that, what is transcendental?
Transcendental meditation.
Yeah.
A slight mouthful, but we often just reduce it to TM.
Oh, I like that.
Transcendental meditation, or TM. Well, it's a very simple, natural mental technique, and it's practiced silently with the eyes closed, sitting in any comfortable position. I mean, in an armchair or wherever one is comfortable. And it allows the active thinking mind to settle inward, to experience what we call pure consciousness or the transcendent. And this is where you transcend all activity of the mind and experience peace and happiness. And this level is beyond, way beyond the mind and senses. I mean, different groups, sorry, Paula, I hope you can edit this out. Yes, it's described as a fourth state of consciousness. It's described as samadhi, the self, the Tao, being, oneness, peace of God that passes all understanding. It's a universal state of consciousness that underlies everything, that permeates everything. And we experience it when we meditate. Mind goes beyond thinking, goes beyond feeling, and expands to this wonderful, peaceful, silent, blissful state of consciousness. And what happens is that while we practice TM, then the body itself enjoys a very profound, rejuvenating rest, while the brain actually functions with much greater efficiency. I mean, I can go on talking about TM, Transcendental Meditation, for forever, really. But I was just going to just give a very brief rundown of some of the benefits one can expect to have. For instance, stress, anxiety reduces, which you would expect. I mean, if the mind and body are more rested, then obviously we're not so stressed, we're not so anxious. And it's a little bit like having a kind of internal armor around oneself, so that all the slings and arrows of fortune that, of course, that are always there, you know, we avoid them and we do our best, but somehow there's always something that can maybe come out of the blue. But it's like having a kind of armor that just means that they don't hit us with such devastating effect. So, I mean, regular practice of TM also, I suppose it improves mental clarity, overall cognitive functioning. Perhaps most of all, for most people, it promotes a sense of inner calm and well-being, emotional stability, and overall happiness, of course. Because it's very hard to be happy. If one's feeling sort of depressed or stressed or anxious, then happiness is not the emotion that's uppermost in our awareness. But when we experience much greater inner calm and emotional stability, then we do feel happier. And not just a sort of temporary happiness, but a more permanent kind of happiness. Because, you know, there are many things that bring us happiness. You know, a beautiful friendship, a lovely, warm relationship, even a wedding, a nice wedding, or something like that, a good hobby, perhaps fulfilling work. And all these things can make us feel happy, but they may not last. The friend moves away, or the relationship doesn't quite work out as one would want. And even hobbies can change, or work can change. Everything can change, but there needs to be something inside us that brings us a permanent state of happiness. So when the mind goes beyond thinking, experiences this pure consciousness, this being or oneness, whatever one calls it, the transcendent, then it experiences a level of bliss and happiness that can't be compared with anything else. And as we come back into activity, we bring something of that silence, something of that bliss out with us, so that in the end, you know, after some time of practicing, whatever we're doing, we just carry within that inner stability of silence. And of course, you know, TM's been shown to lower blood pressure, reduce the risks associated with heart disease, and improve overall physical health.
I love it.
I think that's a start.
So would you say with TM, the mind is still working, but are we kind of getting rid of mind chatter and just relaxing and being in the moment? Is that one of the keys?
That happens. I mean, yes, when the mind settles down, there's less and less mind chatter. You know how the mind is going on and on and on all the time in activity. And you might think that how is it possible to get rid of all that? But actually it is. We experience this very, very deep level of silence. And really, you know, deeper levels of the mind are more charming. When the mind settles down, it's just drawn by its own nature, which is to move to a state of greater and greater happiness, greater and greater peace, greater silence. And all that external, you know, mental chatter, have I done this? Oh, I didn't do that, you know, and so on and so on and so on. It all just starts to become fainter and fainter and eventually just disappear. And, you know, sometimes when we come out of meditation, we sort of think, well, why was I so concerned about all that? You know, it's all going to work itself out anyway. Just that decrease in anxiety, that greater happiness, that greater feeling of peace, and that, you know, life life is okay. Life's going to take care of itself, and it's going to take care of me or us as well. One thing I could say about meditations in general, I mean, I practice Transcendental Meditation, so I talk a lot about TM. Other people do other forms of meditation, and that's great, that's fine, because we all have our own path, we all go in our own direction. And actually, not all meditations are the same, and they don't all produce the same results. I would say that, or at least, scientists who research forms of meditation say that meditations form into three distinct categories. There are those which come under the category of focused attention meditation, those that are in the category of open monitoring. Mindfulness meditations, for instance, would fall into that category. And then there's automatic self-transcending, and transcendental meditation falls into that category. I mean, obviously, there are many, many different forms of meditation, but they all ultimately fall into one of those three categories.
Wow, I love it. What is self-transcending?
Well, that's where the procedures of the technique are transcended. It's like when we meditate, when we practice TM, it's a mantra-based meditation. So we think the mantra, and the mind settles down and settles down and settles down. But there's a certain point at which the mantra isn't needed anymore. That's when the mind goes beyond thought. So it goes beyond the mantra as well, because the mantra is a thought. So it goes beyond everything and transcends. It just transcends all the procedures, everything we've been doing. We're no longer doing. We don't need that anymore. The mind, individual mind, just expands to that universal mind. And it's just so peaceful. I mean, it's so blissful, peaceful, and really very blissful as well. So we experience that when we come back out of meditation.
How beautiful. So how do we realize, how do we know that we're in the universal mind? What is that like?
Well, actually, that's a really good question. It's almost a kind of trick question because, of course, if the mind goes beyond thought, then we can't sit there thinking, oh, this is wonderful, I'm not having any thoughts, because we obviously are having thoughts. Um, if the mind goes beyond thought, then the mind goes into this state of oneness, of being. And we're not really aware that we're having that experience until we come out of it. And then there's a sort of feeling, oh, it's as if I've been somewhere, but I'm not quite sure where I've been, or, that kind of idea. And we come back to the outer world, to our normal activity. But all the time, with every meditation, we gradually bring more and more of that beautiful silence and peace of being with us.
Yeah, yeah. I'll never forget something years ago. It was about 20 years ago in my amazing shaman training. One meditation we did that I literally went outside my body, it was the most amazing thing that I felt, and the peace. And from then on, it's like I've always said to myself, I see through new eyes.
Yeah.
Is that something like going to that?
That's a lovely thing to actually introduce, because so far I've been really talking about TM on a more superficial level, the benefits it can bring and so on. But, a technique like Transcendental Meditation can bring answers to the very profound questions that everybody asks, or most people ask at some stage in their life, like, who am I? Is there a meaning and a purpose to life? And of course, once we start having experiences of the transcendent, then we start to realize that life has a purpose. And I think the most of the great teachers, the great thinkers and so on would agree that the purpose of life is to experience an unbounded and permanent state of happiness. Not just a temporary fleeting happiness that comes and goes, but something that is always there. And that comes, of course, with experiencing the transcendent, which accelerates our progress towards higher states of consciousness. I mean, there comes to be a time, for instance, when that deep peace and stability, that happiness, begins to be established in our awareness all the time. So it's not just here and there. It's something we carry around with us. Whatever we're doing, we're carrying around that inner peace, that inner silence, that inner happiness. And so it's an effortless technique that both recharges the mind and body, but also creates a brighter, more positive state of mind. And that comes with higher states of consciousness. So,
So exciting, so beautiful.
yes, I mean, it's so easy. We're bombarded by, I think, even, modern movies or adverts or statements of people who sort of say that, we only have one life and, that's it at the end and all the rest of it. But that's completely false, because whatever, whatever we're doing, we should be able to be happy. We should be able to be silent. And we should be able to understand that life has a purpose, and that therefore we have a purpose because we're part of life. And therefore,
Yeah,
our purpose our purpose is to experience more and more permanent happiness, because the more that we've got inside, the more that we can help other people.
oh, I love that. I love that. That is beautiful. My
Well,
goodness.
it's very hard to help other people if we're feeling tense and stressed inside. We can help to a certain extent, but the stronger we are inside, the more peaceful, the happier we are, then the more we can empathize with other people, because empathy doesn't just come with I'm miserable and therefore I understand how you're miserable. It comes from having broken through that, knowing what it's like to, exist in a sort of very dark place, but be able to come out of that, and therefore be able to help other people come out of that. And as I say, I mean, with a lot of practice of transcendental meditation and its more advanced programs, one starts to realize that life is tremendously meaningful. And, one life, it's not the end at the end of it. I don't know how much your readers or your watchers, your audience would want to go into all that, but life is a continuum, and there's no reason to feel sad or disturbed. There's so little time. I mean, there's infinite time, and we can achieve what we want. So, that is, I think, something I've benefited from practicing transcendental meditation. And I know many of the people I've taught have. It's quite interesting. I mean, people come to TM for different reasons. They want to sleep better, they want to be less anxious, all this. But deep down, I think that when most people come to learn TM, it's because they feel there's more to life than what they're just being shown at the moment. And they want to experience that more. They want to experience that purposefulness, that meaningfulness. So, that possibly is its greatest benefit to people.
Beautiful, beautiful. And oh, I just have to give you a big heartfelt thank you for all you're doing for others with your teaching. So, how does someone come about to be a student and learn from you?
Well, I think the first step, if somebody wants to learn Transcendental Meditation, we'll deal with that first. Then I think the first step would be to get on the website, which is tm.org. If they get on that website, then they'll be able to find the nearest teacher to them, because, you know, I'm here where I am in Fairfield, Iowa, and somebody who wants to learn may be in San Diego or San Antonio or, you know, Maine, Vermont, even in Canada or whatever. So it's good to have somebody that is a little closer than I may be. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if people want to know a little bit more about the university where I teach, that's Maharishi International University, then again, to get on the website and have a look at it and decide whether it's right for each individual. I think, you know, the class I've got at the moment, it's lovely because I've got a range of students. I'm teaching an MA class, and one student is 20, another student is a grandmother. You know, I've got such a range of people, and they're all coming because they want to understand the meaningfulness of life better. So they come, and it's an accredited university, so one can, you know, one can do all sorts of subjects and have all the benefits that accredited universities have. But anyway, you know, I think the first step for any individual is just to get onto one or other of those two websites, tm.org or Maharishi International University. It's all over the internet anyway, so it's easy enough to find.
Oh, I love it, Patricia. I love it. And something that you say in your book that I just loved, I'd love you to share more about, is consciousness is all there is. Tell us about that. I mean, that's
Yes,
everything.
yes, I will. That's quite an abstract concept to, you know, to get round. But then so's the idea that matter is all there is. We know that can't be possibly be true because of our feelings and our emotions. Um, it's, I think there are different ways, again, of looking at the world. There's the materialist way, which is also sometimes called the physicalist way, that everything is material at source, and even things we don't think are material are material at source. And then there's, for instance, there's what you might describe as idealistic monism, where instead of saying matter is all there is, which is a very hard problem for scientists to work out how thoughts, feelings really settle into that. I mean, how can matter as such give rise to different levels of love, for instance, love that people feel for their friends, for their partners, for their children, and so on. But somehow it all makes sense when one begins to think of the universe as being as being like a great thought, that it's all consciousness. It's like it's consciousness is the consciousness of something that is much greater than ourselves, and everything is an expression of that consciousness. So that's how we can think of it. It somehow solves the hard problem of science, which is, you know, how does consciousness produce feelings or and so on, or subjectivity. But it turns it round and it says that ultimately everything is subjective, everything is consciousness at source. And it is quite difficult to sometimes to understand, but it makes sense because, you know, the more experiences one has of the transcendent, as I say, we call it oneness or being or samadhi, the Tao, the more experiences we have of that, the more we realize that life is not just material. It's something really beautiful. It's It's like having a huge, vast field of consciousness, of which we're an expression of it. And it's as if consciousness wants to know itself through us, through everything.
Wow. That is just so amazing. I love it. And thank you for this fantastic book, Creating a Happy World. Do you see we have about 1 minute left in the show. Is anything else you'd like to share with everyone today before we say goodbye, Patricia?
Yes, I mean, I think what I would like to share is to try to persuade people to look, to look at the two websites I spoke about, but also to maybe consider that life isn't isn't meaningless. It's full of meaning, it's full of purpose, and that everybody has a meaning and purpose too. And we find our purpose, we realize how meaningful we are. There isn't a single individual on this planet that is not meaningless. It's all obviously different degrees of meaningfulness, but we are more important than we realize.
Oh, that is beautiful. So, yeah, so we all have a meaning, we all have a purpose, we all have the beauty inside us, don't we?
We do. It's like that wonderful a New Testament phrase, the kingdom of heaven is within. If we want to find beauty and peace and love and happiness, then we look within, because that's where it's going to be. And the transcendent is the source of all that. So we experience the source in order to experience everything that makes life worthwhile. And thank you, Paula. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I really enjoyed it. It's been lovely to meet you and somehow to meet your audience, even though virtually, obviously.
Patricia, this has just been a joy chatting with you. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining us. Love, hugs, and blessings. And to everyone out there, love, hugs, and blessings. Thank you so much.
Very welcome.